Okay, good morning, everybody. The Redevelopment Agency meeting of February 4th, 2009 is called to order. This meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law, and these proceedings are being presented live on KCLV Cable Channel 2 and are closed captioned for our hearing impaired viewers. The Redevelopment Agency meeting, as well as all other KCLV programming, can be viewed on the city's website at www.kclv.tv. The proceedings will be rebroadcast on KCLV Channel 2 and the web the Wednesday of the meeting at 8 p.m. and also on Friday at 4 a.m., Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 7 a.m., and the following Monday at 1 p.m. This building is protected by state-of-the-art fire detection and suppression sprinkler system, so if alarms should activate, please leave through the exits. Our marshals will tell you when it's safe to come back in. No reason to believe this will ever take place, but we make the announcement in an abundance of caution. So with that, we will call item number 3, which is the approval of the final minutes by reference of the regular Redevelopment Agency meeting of January 7th, 2009. May I have a motion, please?
So moved, Your Honor.
All right.
So moved, Your Honor.
All right, let's vote, please. Post. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action on the City of Las Vegas Redevelopment Agency, the component unit, comprehensive annual financial report for fiscal year 2008. Ms. Folder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a short PowerPoint to go over this year's comprehensive annual financial report for the Redevelopment Agency. This year's audit, as required by state law, we engaged KPMG LLP, a large internationally recognized firm, to complete the audit. The audit was conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. KPMG issued an unqualified opinion, commonly referred to as a clean opinion. Excuse me.
No problem.
Got my wrong set of notes.
Take your time.
Thank you. KPMG found no instances of material noncompliance or internal control weaknesses with this year's audit engagement. The RDA tax increment. This slide shows the activity FY 2005 through 2008. In 2008, the RDA had revenues of $21.4 million for the tax increment, and you can see that the revenue growth had been 24.4%. Net assets of the RDA continue to grow also. In 2008, we're posting $63.1 million in net assets. This is based on the valuation of the assets in the Redevelopment Agency. The growth rate is currently at 21.9 for the fiscal year ending 2008. That is pretty much the highlights of my presentation, but I'm available for any questions.
Ms. Folder, on the tax increment, is that the sum of money that we share on a percentage basis with the various recipients of tax increment development?
Yes, Your
for the
Honor.
city?
That's the increment that we use to provide funding to feed back into the Redevelopment Agency to do some of the projects, fund projects for the growth in that area.
So, as an example, in fiscal year 2008, with the $21.4 million, 18% of that goes to affordable housing, correct? So
Correct.
we understand this. And then a certain percentage based on the arrangement we have with World Market Center or with Allure is taken out of that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then refunded to them,
Yes, sir.
and then has to be placed back into
Placed back in the redevelopment area.
Right, into their infrastructure, as I understand.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear so that folks who are watching this will understand how this works, and this is no windfall to anybody. This is a win-win for the city, and this is the way these tax dollars are being accumulated in a very serious manner. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilwoman.
If this shows the increase we've had to go the 18% for affordable housing and the additional to go back into the RDA infrastructure buildup and so forth, does this also show the growth of additional monies available for those other entities that gain from our RDA activities, such as the schools, such as, the other things? What I'm saying is you have this point, I've been told, where we come in and we take over an area that does not have much tax monies coming in. We increase that so that we have more monies coming in. Do more monies then go to the other entities that some people are concerned about? In
Yes,
other words,
Counsel.
are we showing that we have effectively increased the amount of money we're giving to the other entities as well?
Yes, ma'am. This would show what goes into our RDA that we as a city are using to put back in that area, but it demonstrates the larger impact to the overall pot that shows that it grows at the same proportion that ours grows, to be able to put that money back into the community for those other items, for the schools, for the other things that are funded.
Well, as I go out and I talk about how we take an undeveloped area, develop it, and more taxes are coming in, so we're not taking away money from schools or streets or anything. Can some of this information be drawn up in a way that would show how much more is going back into those entities than before we had the RDA come in there?
Yes, we should work on a presentation of exactly what you're talking about to show what we've brought in to put in the RDA area, and then again how that's impacted the other areas by bringing these projects into the area, how it's impacted and increased the funding that goes to the surrounding area.
And that, I think, is very important, because so many people are talking about, well, we took away money from schools, we took away money from building other things and so forth, but if we've gained this way, then we've also gained that way. And that means the additional funding is going, and I think it would be very important to be able to show in some type of understandable graph for citizens, so they would understand how much more is coming in for those other entities. Take the schools. How much more are the schools getting now than they would have gotten if we didn't have the RDA project?
Oh, that's absolutely right. If
Mr.
we
Walter,
didn't,
I think Mr. Adams might be able to elucidate a little bit.
Sorry, I don't mean to interject, but the item number 6 on the agenda this morning, we're going to be presenting the findings of an independent study of the RDA. And one of the things that I believe they'll be presenting is a chart that shows exactly what you're asking for, which shows how the dollars are being funneled not just to the RDA but to the other taxing jurisdictions. And I think it will clearly show that right now just a little bit less than half is going to the other jurisdictions. When you take the base that was fixed at the time the redevelopment agency was established, you add to that the voter-approved portion that we can't touch, that continues to go to the schools and the other taxing jurisdictions. There's a pretty significant portion that continues to go to those jurisdictions for continuation of services and activities that keeps them whole financially.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that as I've tried to explain that to people, some people who are against the project have stated, well, there's a natural growth that occurs. There's also a natural decline that occurs when you have areas that need redevelopment. So I also wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions, Councilman Wilson?
Please, Mayor. Scott, this is what we were talking about yesterday when I asked you, and I think this is, Councilman, what? That's okay. In our briefing yesterday, I asked Mr. Adams, in order for us to be able to easily explain to our constituents and anybody else who cares a couple of examples. And I asked Scott to put together a couple of projects by way of example, whether it's Allure or World Market Center, where we can see the before tax revenues that were coming in before the project was developed, and then the after completion revenues and where they're going. So we can see a real good example, a couple of examples of the monies that were coming to the city before the development and where they were going, and then after the development and where they were going. And I think, Scott, you're working on that, aren't you?
Yeah, I think some of the, we have some great examples of that, and we're working on two, Allure and the World Market Center, because if you think about a lot of the areas downtown, on some of these project sites, there were vacant land before, which were producing only what a vacant land site would produce in terms of real estate taxes. Now we have a very high density, very intense commercial development on those sites. it produces incredibly greater taxes over what there was before. We're going to give you that analysis that very visually will show that's why you see this rapid growth in revenues here, because we've been taking an area that had been declining for years, has a stagnant tax base, and putting very high density commercial development on it. That creates a lot of new revenue for everybody, not just the redevelopment agency, but the other taxing jurisdictions.
Very good. Are we going to see that today, Scott? Those two?
No,
examples?
unfortunately, I got folks working on it yesterday afternoon after briefing, and I hope to have a draft today sometime, but I'll get that to you just as quickly as we can.
And the important thing of that draft is that it's meaningful to ordinary citizens. Because if we gave them this, we know mostly what this means,
Right.
but that wouldn't be as meaningful to them. So I really think it has to show, okay, the schools got so much before from this area, the schools are not getting this much. Thank
And I reference again the item number 6 on the agenda later this morning. Well, you're going to get an overview that we didn't do, that was done independently, that I think will also visually show that same revenue generation that the redevelopment agency is actually creating.
All right, thank you very much. May I have a motion, please?
I'd move to accept the report. Thanks, Candy.
Let's vote on that, please. Post. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 5 is RA 1/2009, discussion and possible action regarding a resolution finding the project proposed by the Commercial Visual Improvement Program, agreement between the City of Las Vegas Redevelopment Agency and L'Chaim Western Village property located at 321 to 323 Fremont Street to be in compliance with and in furtherance of the goals and objectives of the redevelopment plan, and authorizing the execution of the CVIP agreement by the RDA. This is in Ward 3, and this item is related to Council Item number 50.
Your Honor, if I could, I'd like to correct that item.
All right?
It's not in Ward 3, it's in Ward 5.
In Ward 5, okay. Very good. May the record reflect that, please. L'chaim. Yes. It's a Jewish word for to life. It's when you have a martini and you're making a toast, you hold it up and you say L'chaim. And
Yesterday in our briefing,
I have said L'chaim more than any human being in the history of the world, but that's besides the point. Mr. Adams.
No disrespect intended to our partners who are our business partners on this, but I will be referring to this as the Western Village today.
Okay.
This is a visual improvement program grant for a property I think we all are aware of. If anybody's been down Fremont Street, I think everybody is familiar with this particular site. On the overhead, I have a shot of, on the left side, of what it looks like today, and then on the right-hand side, a depiction of all the things that are planning to be done as part of this grant in terms of facade treatments, new glass, new lighting, new stone treatment, new flooring, all that would be done in the exterior of this property that would clearly show an upgrade to this property on a key anchor corner of 4th and Fremont Street. The applicant plans to invest a total of $117,400, and of course under our program we match 50% up to a maximum total of $50,000. So in this case we would be putting $50,000 into this project. This is one that makes a significant improvement on a very, very prime corner within our downtown area. So with all these considerations, staff recommends approval. We do have representatives of the property here available to answer any questions should you have any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Adams or of the applicant? Okay. Yes, Councilor
ma'am.
Barlow.
Is my microphone on? Is this thing on? I do. As far as the actual use of the building, what type of entertainment are we looking at? Any
This is not in the entertainment district. This is it's a Western wear retail store.
Okay.
And it's in the FSC Fremont Street experience.
We're going this way.
Right. It's on the east. It's not in the Fremont East district. It's in the Fremont Street experience area.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions? May I have a motion? Councilman Barlow?
Yes, I would like to move to follow staff's recommendation for
Thank
approval
you.
of this item.
Let's vote on that, please. Post? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6 is a report and possible action regarding the City of Las Vegas Redevelopment Agency Economic Impact Analysis Report prepared by the consulting firm Applied Analysis pertaining towards 1, 3, and 5. I would like to just start off by saying that this is an independent report, as I understand it, that it was subject to a request for proposal. There were 3 applicants who tried to get the contract, and it was awarded to Applied Analysis. Is that correct? And Applied Analysis has no connection at all with the City of Las Vegas, other than, of course, having their place of business here. Very good. Yes, sir. Mr. Adams.
Well, I just wanted to set, I think you mentioned some things that I already, that I was going to say, that staff started an RFP process on this. We started drafting it in early November. The RFP went out in the 3rd week in November, and then we subsequently selected a firm based on a committee evaluation. And I think that's important for the record that we show that we started this process back in November, and as something that we felt was very important routinely that we do as a redevelopment agency to be able to show the public what the agency's activities have been from an independent perspective. So with that, I'd like to introduce Brian Gordon with Applied Analysis, who's very involved in the drafting and preparation of this study to make the presentation.
Welcome, Mr. Gordon.
Thank you very much. Good morning. We've got a handful of slides here that I'd like to go through that sort of summarize the salient findings from our report. Sort of the scope of the analysis that we proposed on and that is included in the report covers 2 types of impacts, both economic as well as fiscal. Those impacts are then segmented into different time frames. We looked at both sort of the construction phase of projects as well as the ongoing operations of those developments. We also took a look at tax increment financing, projections, as well as some other elements of the study. Sort of the first thing that's important to look at is kind of the timeline that we established as part of the analysis. Certainly when the city's inception came around in 1911, we also took a look at when the RDA specifically started, which was in 1986. Subsequent expansions during that time frame get us to the point here today, 23 years later, and so the focus of the analysis really is on that, what we call the RDA impact period, the time frame from its inception and then projects looking forward. The map you have on the screen here, it's a little bit difficult to see, but depicts the differences between those 2 time frames. The sort of red or brown color is the pre-impact period, and then everything that's yellow is really the investments that were made after the inception of the RDA. From an economic impact standpoint, Councilwoman Tarkanian, you were asking about sort of the rising tide or the general price appreciation that takes place. We conservatively took an approach that took that element of the increase in value out of the equation and looked at just the specific impacts associated with investments that took place, construction activity, those types of things. When we took a look at the data, it told us that about $2.7 billion worth of investment has taken place in the RDA since its inception, generating aggregate economic output of about $4.4 billion. That includes the indirect and induced impacts associated with development. Those one-time construction impacts also included generating about 24,000 direct employees, or a total of about 40,000. From a salary and wages perspective, we had about $1.3 billion worth of salary and wages paid during the construction phase. Combining that with induced and indirect impacts, we get about $1.9 billion.
Mayor Goodman, excuse me. Forgive me, but your figures are in millions of dollars, right?
Correct.
So that 1,333 is $1.3 billion?
Yes.
Correct.
Slide isn't real clear on that, that's why.
Big numbers,
Just clarify.
very big numbers, absolutely. The second element of the analysis, when we were looking specifically at economic impacts, were the recurring, sort of ongoing impacts associated with businesses that were located into this area. So we had about $760 million of annual recurring economic impacts, essentially revenues generated by these businesses. Including the full ripple effect, it's about $1.2 billion with a B. Total employment on a recurring basis, we have about 9,900 full-time equivalents working within the RDA area, and combining that with the ripple effect, we're looking at about 14,000 employees within the region.
And so that those who are viewing this, could you tell us what induced means?
Sorry, I should have explained that. The two buckets being indirect and induced. Indirect would be if I'm a clothing retailer and I'm selling clothes to the public generally, I then purchase my materials or my clothing from a supplier. Those supplier purchases would be the indirect impacts. Induced would be the clerk within the retail store that would then take their paycheck and go shopping, go to a movie, those types of things. That would be the induced impact.
Thank you.
So it sort of accounts for the full ripple effect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those employees within the area are earning approximately $322 million, including indirect and induced impacts. It's about a total of $475 million. We've got several numbers here on the slide for you this morning. We also took a look at the forward-looking impacts of what's sort of in the pipeline today. Significant numbers and a lot of data on here. We're looking at an aggregate of about $16 billion in potential investments in the area. About $1.4 billion is actively under construction. The balance of it is either pending regulatory approval or planned for future development. In our analysis, we don't focus as much on some of these pending and proposed projects. In today's environment, we really focused on stuff that's moving forward today, investments that are taking place today, and construction activity that's taking place today. Those projects generate about $685 million in wages for those construction workers and employs about 12,000 individuals. The ongoing or recurring impacts of those projects once they are built will generate about $391 million in economic output directly, produce salaries and wages of about $166 million, and employ another 5,100 employees on a full-time recurring basis. So activity that's taking place today in projects will be added to the 9,900 employees that we looked at today. You can get a sense of the impact on a go-forward basis. The second element of the project focused on the fiscal effects and what the public funding impact of the redevelopment agency is. The graph here depicts sort of the annual trend, some of these data you were just looking at in the previous presentation. This is the longer trend since inception of the RDA. You can see 18% of the total tax collections are set aside for affordable housing projects. So since inception, we've had about $166 million in public funding directed to the RDA. That's an annual average of about $7.5 million. If we took a look at the latest year, it's about $21 million. Again, a significant ramp up for several factors, obviously price appreciation, but also the investments being made directly within the RDA. We took a look at where that funding is directed in the latest fiscal year. We can see that about 87% of those funds are directed toward public investment, with about 13% being allocated toward the actual operations of the redevelopment agency. Another sort of angle or approach that we took to the overall analysis is to compare those public dollars relative to the benefits that have been created, the economic benefits. So if we looked at all the projects that have been developed or invested in within the redevelopment area, we can see there was about 24,000 construction jobs created. Those are person years of employment, or one construction worker employed for an entire year. If we take a look at the $166 million of total public funding since the RDA inception back in '86, relative to all the investments that have been made, the $2.7 billion worth of investment that's taken place in the area, you get a ratio of about one public dollar for every $16 of economic output during the construction phase. Another ratio is wages paid. We looked at $1 of public investment equated to about $8 of wages and salaries for construction workers working on projects within the RDA. The second phase of that would be the recurring sort of ongoing annual impact. So 9,900 employees work within the redevelopment area. The public funding that is created during the latest fiscal year is about $21 million. So for every $1 of public funding, it creates about $35 worth of economic output on an annual basis. It also pays about $15 worth of wages per dollar of public investment. Another analysis we took a look at was comparing the public investments that are made within the RDA. So the RDA is responsible for contributing dollars to projects. One way to look at the sort of value of those investments is to take a look at how much public funding or public incentives have been provided and what that's generated in terms of private investment. So a firm called Economic Research and Associates did an analysis throughout the country and determined that the sort of industry standard range of investment is somewhere between $8 and $12 per $1 of public funding. So for every $1 that's provided as an incentive, at the low end of the range, redevelopment agencies typically see somewhere between $8 and $12 of private investment. We took a look at the 110 projects or so that the RDA is invested in and compared that to the private investments that have been made in the area. That ratio comes out to about 1 to 15. So for every dollar that's been provided as an incentive, we've seen the private sector invest about $15, which is above the industry standard that we've seen. The final graph here that we're going to sort of take a look at in terms of timeline really focuses on this tax increment question and what public funding has looked like over time. Hopefully this addresses some of the questions I heard in the earlier point. Essentially what we have is the timeline going across the bottom. These are the years of the RDA. We start 10 years prior to the inception of the RDA. You can see where it starts here. It's sort of year 0. Going forward today, 23 years later, where we're at, and then at the far right of the slide, you're going to see the expiration of the RDA in year 2031. What we've done here initially is just layered on the base, which on my version here, the coloring is a little bit skewed, but the light blue color that you'd probably see on your screen there is the base of tax revenues that existed within the RDA before the creation of the RDA. That existed in the area before the RDA was actually created. The first 10 years at the very far left of the slide is showing a modest decline in property values. You can see that the area was blighted. We all know, the reasoning for the creation of the RDA. Certainly blight in the area was one of those key factors. So we had values declining during that time frame. And then in 1986, the RDA was created, and that base along the bottom is held frozen at the inception of the RDA. So those tax dollars continue to inure to the benefit of all the public agencies that it was prior to the development of the RDA. You can see slight increases over time for expansions that took place within the RDA. The layer that I've clicked forward here in the red area is increment that inures to other public agencies. So there are some public commitments that existed prior to the creation of the RDA that are required to continue to inure to those public entities, school district, other public sources that already had voter-approved dedications for where those tax dollars were going to go.
Mayor, Mark Vincent, if I might
Yes,
ask
Mr. Vincent.
Brian a question. That red layer, to be clear, represents taxes that the other agencies benefited from based upon the increase in value as a result of RDA efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, with the level of investment that's taken place, we've seen certainly an increase in overall property values. And so the sort of rising tide benefits those other agencies as investments are made.
Your Honor, if I may?
Yes, Councilor Rose.
Would you tell us again those other agencies that have benefited per this graph because of the RDA? Just briefly.
The agencies that would be within the red area would include the Clark County School District. Scott, you may have, or Mark.
Clark County itself. Those are two of the big primary ones because those are the two big drivers of taxes, and they each have voter-approved millages that are protected under the statute.
As would Metro.
Yeah, Metro's another one.
And as would the city's fire safety initiative would also have benefited.
So because of the RDA, these additional dollars are going into education and public safety. Am I correct?
Right.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And those are growing, too. I think that's the point here, is that as that value base, as we increase the value of the district, because they're a fixed millage, their portion grows along with the growth in the value of the entire district.
So if I could ask a question
Certainly.
again. If I'm an ordinary citizen and I see this chart, the blue represents the base where it was, and it's really wouldn't have gone very far. You're saying, you're showing even there, right? Okay, then the
But
orange...
probably, I'll interrupt if I may, Councilwoman, but I think that we have concluded that the base would not be even if things did not take place in areas where the base was involved. The base would decline
Slightly.
because this shows it increasing. I don't see that. If there's blight and blight continues, it doesn't get better. It gets worse.
It goes down.
Sure, reinvestment in the area, generates incremental
Right, I
investments.
understand that, but if you don't have the investment in the area, the blue will be going down rather than up. I just can't see anything that would turn the blue around other than an increase in property values that have nothing to do with any kind of development whatsoever, and that must be the reason that this is increasing. Just that property values went up in the base, even though it was blighted.
Sure, and again, the base is frozen at the inception of the RDA, and
Okay.
But-
All right, Councilwoman.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do this in a way that as residents of my area, throughout the city, all of us, we can explain this well. So this is a little difficult, I think, for the ordinary person to understand, as some of us here who know it better are having some questions. Are you telling me then that the orange covers the additional amounts that are given to the entities such as the school district, metro, fire, and so forth? That's all the orange contains.
For the time being.
The blue goes to all those taxing jurisdictions. At the time the redevelopment agency was set, and the area was set, all the taxes that have been going to those agencies continue to go to them. That represents the blue.
Right.
The red is the voter protected portion that were in specific millages that were usually referendums or whatever it happened to be, that by statute are protected and have to go to them as well. So the two combined go to all those taxing jurisdictions.
But I'm trying to show the citizens, in order to have them understand that the criticism coming to us is not sound, I'm trying to show them that since RDA was set up, the amounts of money going to the schools are greater than they were before. Is that what that orange shows for me?
That's exactly correct.
Okay, so that shows that they had just a tiny amount before, and now they're getting, well, wait a second, no. Yeah,
Councilwoman, if I could, this
Yes,
is Mark
Mr.
Vincent
Vincent.
again. One way to look at this is at the RDA inception, and I'm guessing with my eyeballs here that the blue at the RDA inception represented maybe about $12 million that was being distributed to all the overlapping agencies. When you go to today, that's over 20. It's over 20 million that's being distributed to all overlapping agencies, particularly those. The red portion is those that had voter initiatives, such as the biggest portion is going to be the Clark County capital campaign override. This would be the big one. And so it has substantially increased from year 1 to year 23, and that's what this graph shows.
and we're expecting it would increase even more. That's why the orange increases so much. But we have had a significant increase so far. Okay, I'm just trying to be able to get the information out.
Well,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor,
Yes.
if I can, Councilwoman, without the RDA, these additional dollars would have not been generated to go to these voter-approved causes.
Yes.
And we stated earlier, the inverse most likely would have occurred because the value of the area was declining, was blighted. We have to, in order to create an RDA, you have to make a blight finding. It has to be blighted. It was declining. It probably would have been going down. In other words, if you took the graph back at 10 years prior to the inception of the RDA and just kept that going, they would have less revenue today than they did back then.
And Your Honor, if I can make one more comment. I know you're going to continue with your presentation, and I think what you're going to show us and to Las Vegans, the public, is that the RDA is an economic machine, an economic builder, an economic driver. In today's economic environment, this thing is crucial for jobs, for investment in downtown, and for businesses. And we need to do all we can to continue to push that. So I think you're going to show that in the rest of your presentation.
If not, you're coming back with a new chart.
We're caught halfway between the slide here, so let me fast forward it just a little bit. This may provide a little bit more clarity as well. If we also layer in the amount of funding that's been set aside for affordable housing, you can see there's another layer here of public funding that is used for public uses. And then the final piece is being the RDA increment that inures to the benefit of the redevelopment agencies that is used then for public reinvestment into projects. Again, all of the developments that have been talked about earlier during this meeting, World Market Center, Allure, as well as public investments in streetscapes, land contributions, and a whole host of other things. So all of that increment, you can see the substantial gains that have been created as some of these projects have started to build upon themselves as major investments have been made in the downtown area. So you can see where we're at today based on a third-party study produced by a financial expert. Kaiser Marsden projects out the tax revenues in the area to about over $100 million.
Okay, I think a question that the councilwoman and others would be very interested in is when the RDA sunsets, when it terminates, what year, that's 23 years, 32 years from now, is that it? 22 years from now.
Right.
The blue, the dark blue, what happens to that money?
Goes to everybody.
And what does that mean? Those substantial hundreds of millions of dollars goes to everybody. That means to the school district? Does it?
Yeah.
Right? It goes to public safety. It goes to, well, that's even independent of it. It goes to all the things that we need to have taken care of in this community. And that's where that blue money goes to. That's where the win is. Right. Good.
Mr. Goodman.
Yes.
Please, not to beat a dead horse, but Scott, what I'm looking for in the two examples you're going to put together is specific. Now, you used the term, and I forget what you said, something jurisdictions. What'd you say about the money going to something jurisdictions?
To the other taxing jurisdictions.
Taxing jurisdictions.
Right.
Okay. I don't know if half the people out here know what that means.
Well, that
what
means
I'm going to ask you to do is to break it down so that the average Joe like me can understand what that means.
Yeah, when you get your tax bill, everybody gets a tax bill, your property tax bill. It comes in, there's about a dozen different taxing entities who each put a little piece on there in a form of a millage that's applied against your value that creates your tax bill. And so at the end of this period, all that red goes to all those dozen or more taxing jurisdictions as a new revenue source that they didn't have before the inception of the redevelopment.
But the two examples that you're going to provide to us, I want you to break it down, the before the project was built and the after the project was built, to show the increase in the revenues and where they're going.
Right, and it generally falls into about 4 or 5 larger taxing jurisdictions: Clark County, the cities, schools, and then they each have a breakdown of some very specific millages for capital and operating and other things. So we're going to show it more by jurisdiction so that you'll understand who it goes to and what the benefit was as a result of that increase in value.
Mayor Goodman.
Councilor Barlow.
Mr. Adams, thank you for the presentation and the information that you'll be getting back to the council. One thing that I want to point out specifically to those that are listening here in the audience or by way of television is that the RDA is such an intricate piece to the city of Las Vegas, and more importantly to me as a representative of Ward 5, because due to the redevelopment agency, a once blighted ward has now had the opportunity to be developed and redeveloped due to the expansion of the redevelopment agency. If it wasn't for the RDA, we wouldn't have the developments that are taking place at 1501 Decatur. We wouldn't have the expansion development and the developments that have taken place inside of the Enterprise Park. The buy-low market that has come into the area has benefited due to the fact of the redevelopment agency, as well as the Moulin Rouge and the other projects that are taking place, just for an example, in the West Las Vegas community alone. And so without the RDA, which I consider the lifeline for me as the representative of Ward 5. Without the RDA, you tell me how difficult would it be for projects to come into areas that need the assistance and the carrot that I use on an ongoing basis to bring development into areas such as the area in which I represent.
Without the RDA, you let it go, and it happens naturally based on natural market forces. Now, natural market forces would not have, because we saw what happened with natural market forces, would not have built a grocery store, refilled that grocery space in West Las Vegas. We had to work intensely over a 3 to 4 year period to get a grocer into that space by calling every single real estate person of every grocery chain in the western half of the U.S. and providing the opportunity to have a public-private partnership with redevelopment agency support to induce them to go into that space. It wouldn't have happened without that. It would just, quite frankly, I think that space would still be vacant today.
So
And you know, you can take that to Enterprise Park and a number of projects. In the center cities of our cities, the market doesn't always take care of itself.
Correct.
And make it happen all by itself. It generally takes heavy lifting. And I know it's an old term, it's a heavily used term, but in public-private partnerships where the public sector engages with the private sector in strategic investments to make the development happen that otherwise wouldn't happen.
Correct. So without the RDA, if the RDA were to stop today, how do you foresee, and maybe you can chime in here as well, how do you foresee the city and wards in which I represent that heavily utilizes the RDA, how would we be able to bounce back, recover? What will be the process?
I think what you would see if you remove the RDA today, you said, let's stop. Look at that chart that you've got in front of you there, and look at the today line, that dotted line, and where that blue intersects, you'd probably see it go flat from here on forward. In other words, you wouldn't see that increase from today up through the sunset of the RDA. So we would probably be giving up $50 million of new revenue. It wouldn't happen. In fact, what might happen is you might see the core community of the city go back into a decline again. Because natural forces, I mean, this is very commonsensical. America, every city in America has suburbanized. Natural forces say, let's build commercial strip centers out on the interstates. And in this market, it's been on the Las Vegas Strip and out in the suburbs on our interstate beltways on interchanges. The Las Vegas Strip is sputtering right now. You know, just pick up today's paper and read the headlines. One of our major companies is about ready to go into bankruptcy. If we think natural forces are going to take care of our core community, I think we're kidding ourselves.
Well, I'll go even stronger than that because I've been integrally involved with the redevelopment since 1999 when I was elected, and I would venture to say that if you had a poll or an interview of every entity that we have seen come into our downtown, I'm talking about every one, the 5 residential units, Allure, Soho, Newport, Streamline, Jewel, without RDA, none of them would be here. We would not have the World Market Center without RDA. It would not be here. We would not have the Chelsea Discount Mall without RDA. It would not be here. We would not have the Mulaski Southern Nevada Water Authority building, the IRS building. None of that would be here. Worse than that, the hotel casinos in the downtown that are now beginning to invest hundreds of millions of dollars, create thousands and thousands of jobs, that wouldn't have taken place. It all took place as a result of the confidence that was built up as a result of the successes of what the RDA was participating in. I think the charts that start off with the blue, just one blue at the bottom there, that light blue, because without RDA, that's all you'd have. And I would submit that when you get into next year, that blue is going to start nosediving, because if it was the base without any kind of improvement by the RDA in this economy, with houses losing 50% of their value, where you can't sell a piece of property, real property, that is going to nosedive. So without RDA, this is a disaster here. It's like some of the northeastern inner cities that are like war zones. That's what would have happened here. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
Mayor, if I could?
Yes.
I don't want to be the demon up here, but, you know, even with what Scott was saying about on the strip out in the county, you know, downtown is hurting also. I mean, there's many businesses that I've seen go out of business. I mean, you talk about Buy Low over there in historic West Las Vegas. I had 3 grocery stores within half a mile of my house are closing up right now.
February 19th.
I got a brand new shopping center that they're begging me to try to help them in some way, you know. And we have, the mayor mentioned those 5 high-rises. They're hurting also. And I mean, this is not, I'm not doing the doom part here, but we are also going to see, even in the next 3 or 4 months, if something don't happen. And I think that's why we have to stay with building a new city hall. It's programs like that that help us in downturns like we're having right now. I mean, there's people that are losing jobs each and every day, even in our redevelopment area. And I just hope that we'll be able to survive. And I don't know whether the numbers are going to continue up like the chart shows, because I don't see how it can until something happens, something turns around, even in the downtown area.
And Mayor, if I may just chime in for a second, Councilman Mayor Pro Tem Reese mentions a very good point, specifically as it relates to jobs, and I'm looking forward to you continuing your presentation. But also, I would like for you to touch on jobs, because so many of our residents are unemployed. A lot of them have lost their homes due to foreclosures. A lot of them are on the brink of losing their homes due to their loans resetting. Due to downsizing of their employment. So we have a lot of individuals in this community that are without jobs. How, in fact, as we move forward to continue to not only celebrate what the RDA has done, and we look forward to it continuing to do, but how does this now turn over to basically be a positive in the sense of those residents who have lost their jobs and who are looking for jobs? How can they take advantage of the RDA and be gainfully employed, whether it be through construction or whether through full-time permanent jobs as these developments come online? Because it's very difficult for residents to visualize or basically wrap their arms around what it is that the city is trying to do as far as expanding the RDA and moving the projects within the RDA forward, when in fact they're hungry.
Mayor, if I could?
So if you can please touch on that, that'll be very important, because it's a hard sell when in fact you can't feed your family. When we're talking about building a city hall, we're talking about building up the 61 acres and the developments in downtown. How does that reach out into the community and touch the lives that are affected today? We're talking about projects that'll be taking place tomorrow, but how do we encourage and keep the residents focused and keep them full of hope that they will be able to take advantage of the great wealth that the RDA is bringing forth every day?
If I could. We have a project in Councilman Tarkanian's ward out on, I think it's Decatur, that's going to be opening in here in the next couple weeks. But they're going to hire.
No, you're not allowed to say it.
Oh, I can't.
Can't say it.
Oh, sorry about that. Anyhow,
I almost had to use my green button for the first time.
Right there.
I guarantee it's going to be used against you first. Okay, that's a guarantee. Let's continue, please, with the presentation.
Maybe let me address directly the councilman's question. The theory the theory behind economic development, and redevelopment is an economic development program, pure and simple. The difference is it's dealing with a blighted core area, and you have to use different tools and techniques to make it happen. We don't actually create the jobs through the redevelopment agency. Our concept is one of leverage. You attract the investor, the business, who creates the opportunity to house a business, to start a business that creates the job that hires the resident. And that's, I think, the result of what Brian's analysis shows, is that through the years, we've created incredible opportunities downtown on construction and in permanent jobs for residents of the city, and particularly the core area, to take those jobs. Better to have the job in the core area within close proximity to those residents who most seriously need those jobs than out on that beltway that I just talked about earlier. If you build the jobs in the core community, they're close to the folks that need them the most. The other thing that I have to mention is the state law. When a developer or a business uses our incentives, the state law dictates that developer show in an employment plan how they will reach out to redevelopment area residents for those employment opportunities. And we've been working with a number of these groups. Bylaws are a great example, where we provided inducements through the redevelopment agency and then worked with the company in job fairs to hire area residents. We have one coming up that I understand. I know it better than anybody, where we will do the very same thing again, is work closely with these companies to sponsor job fairs, reach into the community, and hire residents of the redevelopment area. We're doing it in the construction work. We're doing it in the permanent jobs. This effort is a revenue-generating machine and a job creation mechanism, and that is economic development at its purest form.
Okay, thank you. Your turn.
It's back to me.
Back to you.
I have nothing left to say after all of that. We're at the end of the presentation.
Is that it?
That is it. So if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, very good. Very good. Well, it was an important presentation, and I think we understand it a little better than we did before it was made. I think that the comments by Councilwoman and the various council members, that they want to see more specifics as to where the monies go, so it's easily explainable. That would be very, very helpful. The bottom line, though, is I am convinced without this, we wouldn't have any of the projects. It'd be interesting if you just called up the recipients of the RDA benefits here and asked them whether or not they would have gone forward without the RDA incentives. I think you'd come up with 100% saying that they would not have done it, because that was my experience in dealing with them before you really took it over. Unless you made it pleasing or palatable to them, they weren't going to come without incentives.
And Your Honor, just one closing comment. All of us as council members, with our staffs, and your staff, Mr. Adams, and Betsy, yours as well, we need to reach out into the community so people understand the economic impact this RDA has. We work very hard to keep our constituents informed. We need to continue that. We actually need to step it up a notch so everybody understands as we go out into the community and talk to our constituents and the voters in the city of Las Vegas. They need to understand what this machine does for this city, because it's a magic machine. It works great. It's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned.
True.
Mayor,
all right, yes,
Mayor, let me just chime in and say this. Out of all the council members on this dais, I'm of the opinion that Ward 5 has the most to gain and the most to lose as it relates to the RDA, being that 70% or 80% of the RDA is in my district. And I have to make sure that, number one, that it is explained at a layman's terms to the residents as far as the importance of the RDA and how, in fact, the RDA really represents the district in which I represent, due to the fact of the economic impact and the positives that it'll bring to the community. And without it, we can be in a very sad state. And so, if you will, when you bring that information back to us, if you would just, as the councilwoman alluded to earlier, if you would please just break it down to where the average individual who's listening or who's participating in this meeting can understand, because I don't want it to go over anyone's head due to the fact that it's very important to me as a representative of Ward 5. So I really appreciate that, and I look forward to you providing us with that information.
Certainly will.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
A copy of this will be given to us, right?
Yes. Yep. Well, this study,
Oh, it's already on.
you've already got it. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't go upstairs first. The other thing is that, just to reiterate what Councilman Barlow said, we up here have been studying this for a long time, and it's so complicated, and we have so many questions. We just want to be able to get it to the other individuals, so they will understand it more quickly than it took us to. Thank you.
But I think the way you visualized it and illustrated to me, Councilwoman, after you went and I believe you toured the Lou Rouveau Brain Institute within the past week, and you were effusive in your praise as far as what has been developed down there in this redevelopment area. And I think you either came up with the test or somebody suggested the test, and you close your eyes and you envision nothing being there, and then you open up your eyes and you see what has been basically created out like a phoenix out of the ashes, to be honest with you. This was a brownfield site over there that no good was happening. Nothing. It was sat fallow for as long as I can remember, and now it's going to be the cultural and intellectual and medical center of the entire state for all intents and purposes.
And you're absolutely right. And I said, if people could just see what the lot was like before, just dirt, just trash, just graffiti, and then see the Lou Rouveau Center, then see the World Market Center, a picture of it, to show where you go from absolutely dead nothing to vibrancy. And that's what redevelopment has done. And I think that's what I'm trying to have people understand, if I can, because I wasn't one coming on to this council as a great RDA person. You know, I didn't know that much about it, and I had many questions about it. But I have studied it, and when I went to the Lou Rouveau Center there, and I saw what is probably the finest center for Alzheimer patients in the United States.
In America, world.
Maybe in the world. I haven't been all over the world, but what I know about, he may be very right. He probably is right. But in any case, magnificent, magnificent. And to have it here in the city of Las Vegas. And then this past week, I spent several days down in Los Angeles at a conference at USC. I visited all the redevelopment areas they've done in probably 12 different cities. And I saw what came from ashes there and the vibrancy that they have. And this is what redevelopment has done. And really, there are many new, exciting ways to work out redevelopment that we even haven't done yet. We have so much more that we could do here. And I thank you, Mayor, for mentioning that, because I'm someone who has learned the importance of the RDA. I'm someone who has seen the difference. And I just think that if we can show people that clearly, what it took me a longer time to see, if we can show our citizens that they would really get behind and appreciate what we're doing. Thank you.
All right, now have a motion, please.
Yes, Your Honor. But just to piggyback a little bit on what Councilman Tarkanian is alluding to, you know, I've been up here for 14 years, and I've been very active and actively involved with the RDA. And the one downfall that I find is that it's really, really hard to get anybody to come into this chambers and put out to our constituents what's really going on. Every time the newspapers or the TV stations get a chance to slam us for something, they do it. And it's like my mom told me one time. She was alluding to a program she's watching on TV, a newscast. I tried to explain to her that wasn't what happened, and she said, "They can't lie on TV." And I said, "I was at the meeting, Mom," and she continued to call me a liar, and that the TV was right. And that's just what happens is people, they read an article in the newspaper, and that's the way it is. And no matter how many times you try to explain to them, even if you have the forms to show them, they still doubt you. And you try to show them like what Councilman Tarkanian was talking about, the Lou Rubo Brain Institute. I had a tour over there with Mr. Rubo himself, Larry Rubo, and he told the people that was in the tour that I was with, he said, this is the greatest facility like it in the world. And he says, when we get this open, when the doctors are announced, he says, everybody in this city is going to be shocked at what we're going to be able to do here. And that's because of the RDA.
Sure.
And with that, Mr. Gordon, I want to thank you and your group for the study you've done. I hope it helps us out to further our efforts. I hope it makes it easier for us to sell. And with that, I would move that we receive this report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Let's vote, please. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 7 is citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the Redevelopment Agency. No subject may be acted upon by the Redevelopment Agency unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please step up here, give us your name, and we'll put a 3-minute timer on, please. Yes, please.
I'm Catherine Duncan, President of the Ward 5 Chamber of Commerce, 1240 West Owens Avenue, Suite number 1, Las Vegas 6462551. Good morning, Mayor and City Council.
Good morning.
Mr. Goodman, I'm respectfully requesting that you empower a mayor's task force to create an economic stimulus package for historic West Las Vegas. We have a councilman representing Ward 5 who's doing what we believe is a great job at what he believes is best for our community, but we need a mayor too. Closing streets without proper notice was very disrespectful to our community. It does shut off the economics of that area. It diminishes pride of a people who have very little to be proud of because it is still a blighted area. Now, I know there's a lawsuit pending against the city, against S Street, but we also need to address A, B, C, and D streets. Mr. Mayor, your task force needs to include citizens in this community, especially the young people, some business representatives, neighborhood services, historic preservation, public works, arts commission, NDOT, and the RTC. Now, we are coming to you with the 7 recommendations as a Chamber of Commerce that we feel could help mitigate the negative impact of the street closures. Number 1, we need to create a scenic gateway that says, welcome to historic West Las Vegas. This should be at Bonanza and City Parkway. We need to place a historic marker at McWilliams Town site so people will know who McWilliams was and why the McWilliams Town site is important and why it deserves a historic landmark. We need to create pedestrian-friendly walkways so that those of us who live in this neighborhood can walk to the other parts of town. We need an Uptown Walk of Fame so that we can celebrate the accomplishments of our civil rights leaders, the entertainers, and the pioneers who deserve to be recognized. Now, City Parkway north of Bonanza should be renamed. It should be called Sammy Davis Jr. Parkway. And we need to seriously upgrade the bus stop shelters. They're in deplorable condition. We need directions coming off the freeway so that people will not only know how to get to downtown, but they also know how to get uptown. We need to produce the maps, we need to produce the brochures, and we need information to give to visitors who would want to visit our community. Now, if your task force would convene within 24 hours and work on these initiatives every day and make it a priority until they're complete, and you show them that these need to be complete before you leave your office, then we believe that your actions will be the beginning of creating the economic stimulus that our neighborhood so sorely deserves. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd be kind enough, Ms. Duncan, to leave your notes if they're in a condition to be left with Ms. Fretwell. If they're not, if you want to prepare those remarks and get them to me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council people. My name is Gene Collins, and I live at 1101 Eleanor Avenue. I wish I was just as optimistic as Mrs. Duncan when she left here, I don't see the things that she alluded to. But before I go into this, first of all, I'd like to ask our councilman, are you going to have a town hall meeting on the 18th, I think, so that we can discuss the building of the new city hall, so we can give our input, whether it's good for us or if it's bad for us? Are you going to have a town hall meeting so that we can come out and discuss what is best for our community?
I will say this to you, Mr. Collins, that on the 18th, which is a council day, there is a agenda item for public comment. It's a public hearing. So anybody who wants to express themselves regarding that, they're welcome to be there at that time.
See, thank you, Mayor. See, what we wanted to do, we want to get ahead instead of behind for a change. Now, this redevelopment agency was started when I was an assemblyman. Yeah, we voted it in then for you all to be the council and the redevelopment agency. It was under our tulip. It has not lived up to what it was supposed to have done. Now, we took $17 million, and you all know Bob Snow. We gave Bob Snow $17 million to bring in. He brought in the train, and we gave him $17 million to do what? Put more slot machines in. And I said it at the time that it was not going to work. And sure enough, it didn't work. We, the black community, have not benefited from the redevelopment agency at all. And so why should we continue to pump money into something that has not worked for all of the citizens of this city? It's totally out of character for us to come here and continue to push something that does not fit all the citizens, and one size does not fit all. It's our tax dollars that goes into this redevelopment agency as well. Now, I heard Mr. Scott Adamson say that, the school district. I think that once the agency was set up, there was a cap put on the businesses that was all in this area. Now, once the new businesses came in, I'm thinking that the school district did not get any more of this redevelopment money. Now, I could be wrong because it's been over 20-some years since the RDA was put into effect. But I'm sitting here listening to Mr. Adams, and all of a sudden things begin to come back to me that the school district are the ones who's going to get hurt by this, because they are not going to share into all of the revenue that the businesses in this area garner. So if I'm not, like I said, it's been some 25, 30 years ago since I heard this about the school district being a part.
Mr. Collins, I have to cut you short.
Well,
we have to go on. That's why we have time limit.
Hey, I want to thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you, my friend. All right. Anybody else want to be heard?
No.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dorothy Barnes, Las Vegas resident. As I stand here in memory of Mr. Tom McGowan this morning, I would like to share something about I was watching the news this morning, and I see the president say, I screwed up the 100 days. He's trying to bring this country out of a recession. Well, I thought in mind of the scripture that says righteousness exalted a nation. Proverbs 14:34 says righteousness exalted a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And I went over to the book of Malachi, 3rd chapter, where it says, starting at the 8th verse, where it says, will a man rob God? And he said, wherein have I robbed thee? He said, in tithes and offering. This whole nation is under a curse because people failed to obey God and failed to obey his commandments, and even in giving tithes and offering, the tenth holy and acceptable unto the Lord. When we turn from sin and begin to live righteous, the Bible says we'll be blessed, because there's a scripture that says when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. They're happy. But when the wicked are in authority, when they're doing something under the table, the people mourn. They're sad because something is not being done right. We have to take in mind the Bible. Jesus tried to bring us out of that recession a long time ago, and he wasn't able to do it. And they talked about how the trillions of dollars have been spent over the decade. And if you stack the dollar bills, it will reach up to the moon. That's how he showed it on the news this morning. And I kept thinking about how if people would obey God, there wouldn't be a lot of suffering and pain. Of course, the Bible says the poor will have among us always, but we won't have people suffering because all the racketeering and money laundering. If people would run the government right and give to those that are supposed to be given to, and not use the abuse the money that's given out. Even a man in Texas abused the free lunch program by stealing funds from the free lunch program, and they caught up with him. So this type of fraud and government fraud goes on. But if people do what God say, it'll be enough. There's plenty in the land. We're in a land flowing with milk and honey. There's no need for all the homelessness, and we wouldn't even need a food stamp program and social service offices. We wouldn't need all the police and everything if people stop doing wrong, breaking the law. We wouldn't need all the courts. Some countries don't spend all that money on jails, money to feed prisoners, and play with them with these games they play in America. We're playing Camelot. We don't need to act it out in Las Vegas or Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard? All right, seeing none, the Redevelopment Agency, please step up, please. Give us your name, please.
Hi, Rhea Watson. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
So I've never done this before, so I apologize if I don't have all the formalities and information, etc. But I am a resident of Ward 5. Specifically, I live on J Street. My business is also in Ward 5. My family and I own a school, House of Knowledge Christian Academy, and we're going into our 9th academic year. From my understanding, and again, please forgive me, and you can stop me at any time, but I just wanted to comment on the D Street closing. I'm completely against it. We need it open. I need it for my parents. I need it for my parents who are elders. More specifically, I was interested in finding out about the impact studies, and I know I should have done my own due diligence and my homework to find out what the results were. But I'm hoping for transportation, emergency purposes, someone can give me a briefing on the impact studies. Do I need to be stopped? I'm at the wrong time?
Well,
Okay.
there is an item
number 24, Mayor.
Yeah,
Okay.
item number 24 would be the appropriate time. That's going to be discussed.
Okay, so I should come back.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Y'all look great up there, by the
Thank
way.
you. I feel good. Okay. Did you want to be heard, ma'am?
I'm Rhea Turi. I am not a part of Ward 5. I actually am coming in from Henderson.
Where's Henderson?
Oh, Henderson is a wonderful part of Las Vegas. Wonderful part, Mayor. But I'll say this, as a Henderson resident, and good morning to everyone. As a Henderson resident, as far as it may be, Mayor Goodman, that you've forgotten us, I haven't forgotten you in Las Vegas. And I certainly haven't forgotten and been made aware of the closures that are going on in Ward 5. And I thought it was worth me getting up this morning. It was important that even though I'm in Henderson, I still view Ward 5 because of the things that I have been told happened there so many years ago that affects my heart and my memory. I still am a part of that community, even though I happen to live in Henderson. And when I heard of the various closures of the street, I'm going to be honest with you, I was appalled. It is an area that is worth remembering. And if you live in an area, I know I live in mine, we want access. We want easy access in and easy access out. And if you don't live in an area, you definitely don't want your streets cut off, because as of such, it makes it even harder when you're coming in to know where in the heck you're going. So I just thought, as a resident of Greater Las Vegas, that I would like to come out and to give my opinion regarding the closures of any of the streets there. And I think the idea that was given by Ms. Duncan with regard to a street, a major street, being named after dear Sammy Davis Jr. would be an excellent idea. I know myself, when I came into Las Vegas, I was kind of saddened at the fact that we get Dean Martin, we can get Frank Sinatra, all of these important people that are given major streets that everyone would recognize. But we take Sammy Davis Jr. and we simply place him in one particular area? No. He was a man that, again, all knew all over the world. And I would like to see a major street honoring Sammy Davis Jr. Thank you for your time, all of you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to be heard? All right. The morning session of the Redevelopment Agency is adjourned, and the City Council meeting will start, what do you need, about 5 minutes? In 5 minutes.